I think we are live now.
Yeah, we are live.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Nilesh. Very good evening, one and all. We have gathered here for another exciting session of Medical Legal Aspect series. This is our session 19, and uh, I am happy to share the details that this is my team. We have been working hard probably to make this series work. And we are 18 sessions old. And these are the topics we have covered. The important topics out of these are Consent, Consumer Protection Act, record keeping, indemnity insurance, how to respond to a legal notice, medical legal aspects related to endophthalmitis, telemedicine, cataract surgery, ROP, intravitreal anti-VEGF, billing related medical legal aspects, mass cataract surgeries, refractive surgeries, NMC guidelines for ophthalmologists, MLC issues related to violence against doctors, MLC related to live surgeries, and criminal and civil responsibility of the hospital. Today we have gathered here for another session, that is our session 19, which highlights the issue of permission for eye hospitals and legal licensing. So for this, we have our esteemed panelists. First up, we have Dr. Anand Deshpande, sir, who is Director and Eye Surgeon in Guru Prasad Netra Nalaya at Aurangabad. Sir is also the Chairman of Indian Medical Legal Consulting Services Private Limited. He is Co-Chairman of Legal Committee of AIOS. He is a Faculty of Law and Visiting Professor at Symbiosis Law College, Pune. Sir is National. Also, he is Faculty of Management Services Sciences, BME Aurangabad, and he has written various books like Legal Aspects in Ophthalmology, to name a few. Next up, we have Dr. Prakash Marathe, sir. He is the consultant ophthalmologist at Netrogi Eye Clinic, Pune. He is past president of Maharashtra Ophthalmic Society, Pune Ophthalmic Society, and Indian Medical Association, Pune. He, sir, is also the chairman of Maharashtra chapter of ISMS ICS. He is past managing committee member of AIOS, also the past senior vice president of IMA Maharashtra State. Sir has received President's Appreciation Award by National IMA headquarters at New Delhi in 2018 as well as 22. He's also received President's Appreciation Award by IMA Maharashtra State for many years. President's Special Felicitation Award by IMA Maharashtra State for 2021, and also late Dr. Asha Kelkar Award to 2022 by Pune Ophthalmological Society. Next up, we have Dr. Manoj Chand Mathur, sir. He is a senior consultant in glaucoma and comprehensive ophthalmology at Swaroop Eye Center, Hyderabad. He is presently the honorary treasurer of AIOS. He is the past president and president of Telangana Ophthalmic Society and Hyderabad Ophthalmologist Association. He is the co-chair of Health Insurance and TPA Committee of AIOS. He has been member of Medical Legal and Ethics Committee of AIOS in the past. Has been twice member of Managing Committee at AIOS, and he is also served as a member of Advisory Board of IGO. We welcome you all, sir. For the interesting session tonight, we have renowned speaker, Dr. Nirmal Frederick, sir. He is currently the chief eye surgeon at Nirmal's Eye Hospital, Tamara. He has played multiple roles beyond a clinician, including those such as he's a principal assessor at NABH Quality Council of India, assessor at Emirates International Accreditation, member secretary at NABH ICRAS Standards, executive committee member at Ocular Trauma Society of India, advisor at TNO, a Journal of Ophthalmological Sciences and Research at JIMA. Is chairman of Insurance Committee, IMA Tamil Nadu Association, and also co-chair National IMA, and is currently the president of Tamil Nadu Ophthalmic Society. He has given more than 1,200 lectures and multiple presentations at national and international conferences. He has over 40 publications and he has written 12 book chapters, and he's author of five books. Sir has won several awards and achievements at the national and international level, has received more than 40 named awards and oration, including the prestigious TNOA, Dr. Joseph Oration Award, Professor Dr. VVR IMA Oration Award, Dr. DL Shukla Award for outstanding contribution to the National IMA. Sir has been recognized as a Center for Quality Promotion by CHO and QCI and Quality Champions by CHO at CowCon 2022. We welcome you, sir. I would like to request you to give your talk. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Deepanshu, and thank you all the YOSI, the dynamic YOSI group. And let me first congratulate you for this mammoth effort of conducting 19 webinars on this particular topic. That shows your commitment to train and update the Young Ophthalmologist Society. And let me also congratulate the three musketeers, I should call. The knowledgeable gentleman here, led by Dr. Anand Deshpande, Dr. Prakash Marathe, and Dr. Mathur, for helping the youngsters continuously over this 19 webinars. And thank you for inviting me here. I think this is my third visit here. I'm very happy to be part of you and happy to be part of this knowledge sharing. Let me share my screen. So this was the topic the YOSI leadership asked about, the regulatory and statutory requirement. First, I thought I would cover only the basic because of the audience profile, young ophthalmologist. But Deepanshu said the videos or YouTube videos are seen by all the ophthalmologists. And I also thought that irrespective of the age group, everybody should know the regulatory and statutory requirements for the practice of ophthalmology in India. And right from junior to senior level, many of these narratives are very, very important to provide the right standard of care to our patients. And these are my credentials. So this is the topic, licenses and statutory requirement for eye centers. Some of us call as clinic, institute, hospitals. So whatever it is, the requirements are going to be the same, depends on the size of the organization. And my talk will not be based on pure medicine or pure law or these books. So basically, I've organized this talk based on my experience and my multitasking work with not only as a principal assessor with NABH, but also as an office bearer with various organizations, associations, IMA, Nursing Home Board, and also involved in drafting the eye care standards for NABH. So apart from the first edition, we are now doing the ground level work for revising the second edition of NABH eye care standards, as well as on the other side as assessee and managing a small eye hospital. So have this experience of dealing with this regulatory affairs and statutory requirements on the first hand. So let me put things in the perspective. I'll start with the basics. And apart from providing care, a doctor should observe the provisions of all central, state, local administrative rules and acts. So non-adherence or ignorance of law is a punishable offense. Ignorance is not bliss here. In fact, ignorance is a punishable offense. So this important aspect you have to remember. And it's a shocking information that 70 to 80% of doctors are unaware of the laws regulating their area of specialty practice. More so as they come to specialty practice directly, particularly now is the era of direct specialization and super specialization. Most of these doctors are not aware of the legal requirements for their practice. Or if they know something about it, many of the principles are misunderstood, particularly human rights, the consent requirement, the prescription requirements, all those things are conveniently forgotten or misunderstood. So in the context of this, it's important that we learn something we fail to teach you in medical colleges, right? So these are things that are not taught in medical colleges. There we focus mostly on the number aspect. Surgery means number of cataract surgery. We keep reading for exams, but we tend to forget or set aside the practical requirements of doing ophthalmic practice. And here, once you start the practice, these are the things that are needed. So I've divided this lecture into two components. The part one is understanding the basics. Just to give you overview of the licenses required to operate an eye hospital or center. right from Clinical Establishment Act to other statutory requirement like fire safety certification and biomedical wastage, as well as importance of professional accreditation such as NABH, because there is a strong focus on getting statutory requirements in place in the accreditation results. The second part may be for established practitioners and practices, a compliance on advanced licensing, particularly if they have a corneal transplant or a cornea department or eye bank. You need to know something about the corneal transplantation, HOTA Act, or if you're doing a cosmetic surgical procedure, what are the requirements? And also, how would we maintain the regulations? These are very, very important. Not only getting the first license, but you also need to maintain the requirement for the license as well as renew the licenses on time. And if you don't do, what happens? It's very, very important that we consider the medico-legal aspects as well. So let me start with some basic info and definitions. So basically, for our approach in quality healthcare, ideal is to have a voluntary effort. So you need to adopt the quality assurance and continuous improvement over a period of time. But unfortunately, the governments felt that the professionals are not taking enough care to provide standard of care or quality. So they wanted to put certain regulatory measures. So not only the central, but also the state and district authorities have come up with many regulatory requirements to improve the quality of services offered to our patients. So this is the basic of having so many regulations in healthcare. So what are these regulations? So the regulations are the instrument mandated by the government to impose certain set of conditions for you to operate a healthcare institution, maybe a clinic or a hospital or a big institution. There is a set of conditions. So these are called as regulatory requirements. So these are based on minimum standards, and there will be an inspection authority to see that you meet up with the minimum standards. And if you don't meet up with the minimum standard, there will be an enforcement clause so that you are accountable to the public and the government. So this is the basic requirement on the regulatory aspect. So there are certain other terminologies being used, statutory compliances. So means that it related to statutes or what we normally call laws or regulations. And this has to be complied with. So as a healthcare institution, we have to comply with all the norms of the licenses on the particular aspect, whether it's fire NOC or pollution control board license, we have to comply with all the requirements. Then only the license is operable. So basic minimum requirement. So the license is issued to open or operate the facility. For example, if it is a Clinical Establishment Act, it is a minimum required license to open a practice, whether it's a small clinic or a big hospital. And a lot depends on the degree of seriousness. Unfortunately, laws are there in our country, but many of the laws are not implemented in that spirit and not enforced by the enforcement agencies. So regulatory approach has a limitation because it does not address the process aspect. So it allows you to get a license, but whether the licenses norms are followed is not being enforced. So regulations ensure that basic minimum standards are there in the hospital, but high quality services calls more than the statutory obligation. So this is where our ethics and standards come into the picture. And if we are obliged to the law, we have to follow not only in letter, but also in spirit. And for quality healthcare, the standard of care, spirit is more important than the letter. So there are a lot of national health legislations. So I may not go into the details of this, but I'll just give you certain excerpts from the 10 core areas. So there are 10 core areas on which all these regulations are applicable to eye care or any healthcare. So important laws applicable to hospital are the Indian Penal Code, particularly the medical sections. Then there are certain medical legal challenges and new laws that has come into the picture and how we can address this. So healthcare laws, there are three main sources. One is the statutes, and second one is the case law, and third is the codes of conduct. So let me explain you about this because some terminologies we need to understand. So the regulations or statutes are statutory instrument. This is given by the government, central, state, or district authorities. It must be adhered to. And there are two regulations here, two basic set of regulations. The first one is specific for medical field only. The second one is it's not specific to medicine, but has a considerable impact on our medical practices. So for example, ESI-PF is an important law, but when you employ more than 10 employees, ESI will come into the picture. When you employ more than 20 employees, PF law will come into the picture. So similarly, if you are using digital health EMR, the Data Protection Act will come into the picture. So these are regulation, it must be adhered to. The second one is about the case laws. So you already gone through 19 webinars and important topics. So I saw the first one was about consent. So the consent is an important aspect. So these are case laws, principles derived from the interpretation of individual court cases. So we all know various court cases that had a huge impact on the way we practice. The first one is the Kunal Shah case, which later on led to many laws concerning the medical profession. So these are related to consent, confidentiality, and Medical Negligence Act. This applied to clinical practice as well as the professional practice if we are having a hospital. So these are called common laws. The third one is the conduct or ethics. So codes, various codes. So if you are a medical professional, the MCI gives us MCI, and now the NMC has given us a huge list of code of conduct. And there is a precondition for continued MCI registration. The re-registration happens every 5 years, which means those 5 years we have to follow the code of conduct. Otherwise, we may not be re-registered. Apart from the credit hours, this is very, very important. So let's go to, let's get some clarity on the compliance aspect. So guidelines to good practice. There are certain, these are the overview of laws relevant for eye centers or hospitals. So basically, I have divided this into 4 categories. The first one is registration and licensing requirement for commissioning a hospital. So registration and licensing requirements. So it's very important to comply with this before starting a healthcare facility. Then, as I said earlier, common acts applicable to any organization, whether it's daycare center or single specialty center or big institutions. These are acts, laws applicable to any hospitals. Then laws or acts specifically related to the functioning of healthcare sectors. This is related to the function. As I said earlier, ESI, PF, all these are related to the functioning of the healthcare centers. Then relevant public health legislation. So when COVID came, so the Epidemic Act, Pandemic Act came into the picture. So at that time, it was mandatory. So these are similar public health legislation. So it happens during certain emergencies. So this is the overview of the legal requirement for hospitals. So let me give some details about what are all the registration and licensing requirement. I will not go into the details. So registration means, suppose if you are running a hospital and it is registered as a company, you have to register under this Companies Act. On the other hand, if it is a NGO hospital, it has to be registered under Indian Trust Act or Society Registration Act or Charitable Act. And if it is a single clinic, if you have opticals, pharmacy, and labs, and you want to operate that, you have to register under Shop and Establishment Act or trade license. And of course, the Clinical Establishment Act is mandatory now. It is a central act and now adopted by almost all the states now. So CEA registration is mandatory for any healthcare hospital. If you are dealing with psychiatric patients, then you need to know something about the Mental Health Act. And if you are working in a medical college, you also need to know about the establishment of medical college regulations. So similarly, there are registration and licensing requirement as per your scope of services. And then once you get the license to operate or start, you need certain other licensing requirements. So if you have your own building, you need to have a building permit. And for safety, you need to have a fire NOC from the chief fire officer of your state. And for medical and healthcare institutions, you need to have a NOC from the pollution control board. And like if you have a lift in your facility, the Lift Act will come into the picture. If you have a DG set, you need to get a NOC for using the diesel genset. So similarly, based on the facilities you have and the scope of services, you need to have this licensing requirement. And this is oft repeated questions. We are only a daycare center, whether we come under hospital or come under clinic. So you have to understand this. Any facility which have a critical facility like operation theater is still considered under the hospital. There is no separate daycare act in India. So unless we all get together and form a daycare center act. So you have to consider whether you are a daycare center or any facility giving surgical treatment, you are considered under the hospitals. Then the second part is common acts also applicable to healthcare, like Consumer Protection Act. And if you are having the consent, the Law of Torts and Indian Contract Act, and Workmen Compensation Act, maternity benefit if you are employing women employees. So all these will be applicable as and when you go to that area. Then there are so many other acts. So the healthcare is such a highly regulated field. Very often we hear that healthcare is totally unregulated. But so many acts come into the picture. There are about 78 regulations for a medium-sized hospital and 102 regulations for a large institution. So it's a huge number of regulatory compliances required to run a hospital. Then laws specifically for healthcare institutions. Suppose you are having a scan facility, you need to have registered under the PCPNDT Act. If you are running a pharmacy, you have to register under the Drug and Cosmetic Act. And if you are using narcotics and having anesthesia arrangement, you need to have a NDPS Act. So these are acts specifically for healthcare institutions. And of course, the codes I've already told you for doctors, Indian Medical Council, Professional Code of Conduct was amended recently also. Then for nurses, Indian Nursing Council Act. So same way for pharmacists. And we now have a new act. In many states, it has come based on the attacks on hospitals. Some of the states have promulgated this law, the Medicare Service, Personal and Medicare Service Institution Protection Act. So in 2008, Tamil Nadu promulgated, followed by Andhra Pradesh. So you also need to know something about it to safeguard yourself. As I said earlier, relevant public health legislations, the Epidemic Act, then vaccination regulations, and then the notifiable disease. In ophthalmology, the notifiable diseases are rare. But if you come across tuberculosis, it is a notifiable disease. You need to notify it to the district health authority or refer to a TB specialist for the government will take care of their treatment. So you have to ensure that you know these notifiable diseases in ophthalmology. And of course, epidemic. So if you have a cluster endophthalmitis, you have to notify it to the district authorities. So these are things that is relevant for ophthalmology. So let's now go into how into some details of what are all the legal licensing and permissions for eye hospitals. So basically, related to licenses for running the hospitals and various facilities. For the structure, for the opticals and pharmacy, you need to have a trade license. And pharmacy, you need to have a retail pharmacy license. And for the doctors, of course, the code of conduct comes into the picture. So a word about the Clinical Establishment Act. So this was promulgated in 2010, but many states adopted later. And these are the highlights of the act. To establish a registry. It was actually not a controlling or licensing thing. It was basically came as a digital registry of clinical establishment. Unfortunately, now it is being misused as a licensing norm, but basically it is only a registration. So to ensure that minimum standards of facilities are there in the healthcare facilities, and there are certain norms about the infrastructure as well as the manpower. So I will not go into the details, but there are certain regulatory norms associated with this Clinical Establishment Act. Depends on the state where you practice, and each state has certain changes in the way they have brought out this law. West Bengal has a system. Karnataka has brought out as a different thing. Way back in 2007, they adopted this. And many states, there are certain changes. Since in India, health is a state subject, there are a lot of state variations. So for you to understand this, you have to study your state draft of the Clinical Establishment Act or the Gazette. Right. So I'll just briefly give you the 10 important points related to functioning of the hospital. So one is the building requirement. So you need to get a building permission, and space allocation or statutory obligation, which means you have to oblige this, and there has to be adequate space, lighting, ventilation, and continuous potable water and power supply to all our patients. So this is an important requirement under the National Building Code. The second point is you also have to offer safe and hazard-free environment to patients as well as to our employees. So employees includes us. So there should not be any harm or hazard in the environment. So safe and hazard-free environment is mandatory. For that, these are three important regulations. One is the fire NOC. You need to have provisions for fire and non-fire emergencies. You also need to have clearance from the Pollution Control Board for air, water, and noise, as well as biomedical wastage. Right. So if you have a building of your own, it comes under the purview of the municipal corporation or state authority. It has to be approved building plan, and you also need to have a occupancy certificate before you start the operations. So usually the occupancy certificate is issued after completion of the construction. Some states have everything linked to this occupancy certificate. So only if you get this, electricity connection and water connection will be given. And then fire NOC is very important for smaller hospital, less than 15 meters. Some states have given exemption, particularly in the state of Delhi and Telangana. There is an exemption for buildings less than height of 15 meters. But you also need to follow the norms. Sorry. You also need to follow the norms for as a public safety building. And then safety in our facilities, apart from the structural component and functional component, as a hospital, you also need to focus on emergency exit system. In case of fire and non-fire emergencies, you have to have the facility to evacuate our mobile and immobile patients. You need to have an electric system with backup. Since you are doing a lot of surgical procedures, you need to have a backup. It may be UPS, it may be a genset. So alternative power supply, alternative water supply, alternative medical gas supply, and alternative communication systems are very, very important for healthcare institutions. So these are critical systems that has to be integrated. The third aspect is the qualification and registration of doctors and nurses. You have to register not only your medical undergraduate qualification, but if you are practicing as a specialist, you also need to register your additional qualification as per Indian Medical Degree Act. And nursing, of course, we may be providing specialty care, but a qualified nurse is required for any eye hospital because we are giving injections as well as doing procedures. A qualified nurse means any nurse after 3 years of training and recognized by the Nursing Council and registered under the Nursing Council Act. So the nurse has to have a registration number like our Medical Council registration number. Right. So the code of conduct has a moral authority. It is not only ethical, it also has a legally binding norms. So you have to follow this. I'll just highlight some of the code for you to understand. So one is display of registration numbers. So many state medical council has given this board. So this board has to be displayed outside your clinic or outside your practice area. And you also need to display suffix to the names only recognized medical degrees. I think Dr. Deshpande would have told all this earlier. Then maintenance of medical record is very, very important. I will not go into the details, but it's very important whether you are running a OP center or daycare center or hospital, you need to maintain case records for the period of 3 years or 6 years, depending on the scope of services as well as the area you practice. And this is very, very important. If you are giving a certificate as a specialist, please ensure you follow the norms of the certificate. There has to be proper identification. You should record your signature only after verifying all the data entered in that medical certificate. And so there are certain things, the legal restrictions on the usage of drugs, particularly the narcotic drugs and psychotropic drugs. You also abide by all the other acts that are mandatory as a medical professional. And running an open shop, this is the oft-repeated question asked. A physician should not run an open shop for sale of medicines, but you can have a licensed pharmacy in your campus. And if you are prescribing medicines or selling medicine, there is a prescribed limit for this. So ensure that is followed. Then, of course, this is also part of your registration norms. You have to be part of a membership in medical society. So if you're not a member in any of your medical association in your area, state or All India Ophthalmic Society, please become a member as soon as possible, because for at least 30 credit hours, you have to undergo the credit hours norms organized by professional and academic bodies. And this compliance has to be informed regularly to MCI. Many state medical council are having a database for this. So you have to be part of this and don't forget this. And I'll go to the mandatory licenses. The fourth aspect is the mandatory license for you to function as a hospital. So one important thing is Pollution Control Board. And so this board gives NOC for air, water, the sound, as well as biomedical waste authorization. You need to have a tie-up with a common biomedical waste treatment facility. You need to have a MOU with them for disposing your biomedical wastage, segregation and disposal. I think you already discussed about this. The fifth important point is right of the patient. So there are certain fundamental rights of our patients. One is getting the consent. So the counseling and consent is an important part of legal requirement for practicing. So at various stages of treatment, it is mandatory. And also about the medical records under RTA, it is obligatory for the providers to provide all the records to the patient on demand about his treatment. So there is a time limit like 72 hours. Now I think it has been increased to 5 working days. The sixth important regulation is related to the security of patients. Once they are admitted, the security of patients is the work of the hospital or the hospital leadership. So we are accountable and punishable if there is a safety hazard to our patients, particularly vulnerable patients. So vulnerable groups are women, infant, children, old and unconscious patients. So they are our prime responsibility. So we have to take care of them. We need to have a system in place for safeguarding the vulnerable patients. So if you are in ophthalmology practice, these are two end of the spectrum, pediatric patients and geriatric patients. So you have to understand this regulatory requirement. The seventh aspect is safe medication. So we need to provide safe storage, preservation, prescription, and dispensing of drugs by qualified and authorized personnel only. So this comes under the Drug and Cosmetic Act, the Pharmacy Act, under the Narcotic Act. So you need, if you are having a pharmacy, you need to have the license Form 21C, and also you need to have a qualified pharmacist with us. There are certain minimum requirements for a pharmacy shop, I think 120 square feet with some additional area for storing the medicines. We need to have an air conditioner and refrigerator, and the license is valid for a period of 3 years. We need to renew this, and there will be inspection from the drug inspectors frequently. The eighth point is HR related. So a lot of statutory compliances related to the human resources. As I said earlier, ESI and Provident Fund applicable depend on the number of staff you have. That includes the doctors. And you need to pay profession tax to the local authorities. And if you have employees more than 5 years, you need to pay them gratuity under the Gratuity Act. And there is a Minimum Wages Act for nurses and all section of our staff. You need to check with your state on what is the minimum wages applicable to your employees. And if you are employing female employees, Maternity Benefit Act is mandatory. And the Payment of Wages Act and Payment of Bonus Act, all this will come into the picture as part of the labor laws. And as I said earlier, Provident Fund and ESI are important support services, support legal requirements for hospitals. It's better we apply for them because there are a lot of benefits for our manpower. And so there are insurance facilities, medical facilities, and retirement benefit under the ESI Act. And ninth, of course, with insurance coming in a big way in our country, medical record and information management is very, very important. You also need to have statutory documentation. So the clinical documents are very, very important. Most of the insurance related problem happens because of poor clinical documentation. So once you streamline that, your insurance work becomes easy. And sometimes these records become the medico-legal record if there is a case or if there is a contention with the patient. And as I said earlier, reportable and notifiable disease have to be reported on time. And pharmacy records, if you are running e-banking record, these are statutory records. You have to submit the particulars on a periodical way to the licensing authorities. An employee's record, statutorily, you need to maintain the personal file of every employee you hire. And of course, income tax records now also becoming difficult. And the fifth part and the 10th aspect is the other regulation governing the business aspect. So whether you register under the society or a private limited company, or you end up have a contract or MOU with other vendors, all this have to be registered and look into in the business aspect. Right. So private limited company, if you're running a hospital, so not go into the details, and under societies, you need to register. So apart from these 10 points, there are certain challenges in fulfilling the statutory norms. Of course, India is a democratic country and compliance is quite difficult. It's an evolving scenario because the legal requirements have not kept pace with scientific advances. So this is the difficulty we see in complying with the legal requirement. And of course, there is a lot of red tapeism and corruption, and we need to address those challenges. So what medico-legal issues are faced by doctors? So basically with reference to the legal requirements, so many hospitals, there is a failure or delay in complying with the legal requirements and the statutory requirements. We have to ensure that we start with start any facility with all the legal requirements in place. And of course, there are problems related to patient safety, tariff and billing related, and failure of communication like inadequate consent. So how do we sort out this? So one way of looking at this going through a accreditation system, because accreditation standards focus on all these licenses. So it helps us to have our house in order and reduce the risk related to statutory compliances and risk from the government agencies. So we have to take it proactively and ensure we follow the requirements. So there is a system in place in all the accredited hospitals in following the regulatory requirements. So this is the ideal template. So you need the number of the license or the code. What is the act? So all these 10 act or the 10 categories. Who is the issuing authority? When was the license issued? What is the renewal date? And what is the notice period? And who is responsible for renewing the licenses? So all this have to be followed by us. And it's always better to have a copy of all the licenses in one place or one folder for the law enforcement authorities to look into when they come to our building or hospital to see them. And it's important that we store them in a safe place. And we also need to have a compliance calendar and do a proper internal audit to see that all these licenses are in place. So this is a sample. So these are the list of licenses we have. And this is the registration date and valid from, and when is the expiry. All those things, if it is in one place. So this is how accreditation helps in maintaining the legal requirement. And we also enter into MOU with various companies and vendors. It's important that we put them in writing. Otherwise, there will be a lot of issues. So we have to have the MOU in place, a standard MOU, and that will really help in the long run. So ensuring safe practice by regulatory compliance is a need of the hour. We need to comply with all applicable legal requirements. First, you have to know what are all applicable to your practice and ensure that they are integrated into the functioning of the hospital, and not only at the time of getting the license. Ensure there is proper documentation to face medico-legal cases, whether it's CPA case or civil case or criminal case. And compliance with basic laws and fundamental rights are very, very important, because these are things that can really give a bad name to the hospitals. So stay clean and stay clean. Keep your eye care practice pristine, not the pristine aggregator. Stay away from them, but ensure that keep your practice clean with good regulatory appliances. Regulatory compliances. So comply with all regulatory requirements and professional responsibilities, and wishing you all a safe and secure practice. So I know I've left you with many questions unanswered. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take with the help of our legends out there. I'm sure they will help me take the questions. Thank you for your invitation, and thank you for your patient listening.
Sir, what is the status of ultrasound? Like, if we have ophthalmic ultrasound, do we need to get this licensed and get a certificate from PNDT?
Yeah, I think the matter is sub judice. Maybe Dr. Mathur sir can highlight this. At present, the matter is sub judice. It was in there was a stay order for ophthalmic ultrasound. So it was in the Delhi court, and now it has been transferred to the Mumbai High Court.
I think it started in Pune.
Yes.
Pune Ophthalmological Society was the first society which received that notice from Pune Municipal Corporation. And that time, PCPNDT Registration Act, what they wanted to force for A scan as well as B scan and all scans which ophthalmologists had. And after discussion in Pune Ophthalmological Society, maybe late 10 years ago, we discussed and we went into court of law. And after that, there was the stay. And the same thing was repeated at various parts of Maharashtra, and then even Punjab, Rajasthan, and Delhi. And when all these cases were discussed at various courts, I think Dr. Mathur will also vouch, all those cases when discussed at various places, those all cases, I think they are transferred to Pune court, and hearing will be there, not Pune, but Mumbai court. Mumbai court.
All have been clubbed now.
All have been clubbed and there is the stay. At this point of time, you need not worry about PCPNDT, because government is trying to force the ophthalmologist for registration of A scan and B scan. But I think because of this stay, nobody should register. And AIOS is there to fight from all ophthalmic fraternity, and they should take it forward along with various ophthalmological associations like Punjab, Maharashtra, Pune, and the apex body AIOS. Over to you, Dr. Mathur sir, on this issue.
Yeah, exactly. You have enumerated everything. So all the cases were clubbed initially in the Delhi High Court. Then Delhi said that since Pune initiated the first petition, let all the cases be transferred to Mumbai. So what happened is, when they referred the case from Delhi to Mumbai, they misquoted the writ petition number. So because the number is misquoted, it is lying under wraps on the back burner in Mumbai. We had a legal opinion about that. So our lawyers are saying that when you are not being affected by it, let them sort out the issue. Till that time, enjoy. So that's it. The entire case is on the back burner. Once they detect the flaw, once they correct the writ petition number, once that comes for hearing, then all of us will be activated and we shall be taking the required action.
And stay is the better option till then.
Yes.
It is more or less like practically it is a stay now.
Yeah.
And PTD and DT Act is not applicable to us as of now. So no need of being afraid about that act as of now.
Before saying something, with permission of Dr. Deshpande sir and Mathur sir, Kaushik and Dipanshu, I want to say a few things. I think it was a wonderful talk covered by Dr. Nirmal Frederick. But after listening to this talk, I think all solo practitioners must be frightened. They probably felt that they shouldn't dare to go into practice. And it is only the game of corporate hospitals, big hospitals, multi-speciality hospitals, like that should come in your mind. But don't think in that way. there are some ways out. What he has presented is the ideal ophthalmic setup and exactly what is expected. Considering all those laws and rules and regulations, I don't think any law is left. Every law is applicable to medical fraternity, and that is the worst scenario. Few things I like to comment here. I am from Maharashtra. Dr. Deshpande sir is also from Maharashtra. Dr. Mathur sir is from Telangana. You are from various parts of the country. As Dr. Nirmal Frederick has said, health is the state subject. First important thing I like to say here, Clinical Establishment Act, which was passed centrally in 2010, was given to the states saying that you can have your own version. At that time, it was applicable with some Delhi and some places which are regulated by central authority. But most
Union
of the states, union territories, and like Puducherry. And most of these states didn't accept. What is the scenario in Maharashtra? Today in Maharashtra, there was Maharashtra version of Clinical Establishment Act, which was formulated by Indian Medical Association, which is there, but which is still there in the cupboard. It is the Bombay Nursing Home Act, which is applicable in the state of Maharashtra. In Clinical Establishment Act, there are a few good things and few bad things. One important thing I like to mention here, that in Bombay Nursing Home Act, there are only two categories. That is one clinic and other is hospital or nursing home. There is no separate category of daycare center, which basically is useful and beneficial for ophthalmic fraternity. What I hear and what I came to know from that Maharashtra version of Clinical Establishment Act is that there is separate entity, separate classification as daycare center, probably which can be beneficial for our ophthalmic fraternity. But what I heard from Dr. Nirmal Frederick, that even in Clinical Establishment Act, there is no separate entity of daycare center, because what he said, if it is an operation theater, probably you don't come under daycare center. So I think about this point, I like to clarify from him. Few other things like not even the state, but there are various municipal corporations. They have their own rules and regulations. The smaller villages and taluka places where hospitals are situated, for them, the rules and regulations are different. For example, the fire NOC is required every year at some places. At some places, they say it can be given for 3 years. For registration renewal of hospitals, there is so much of trouble in various parts of country, including Maharashtra. I think MPCB is the new entity which is creating trouble. While registering for various hospitals, I think MPCB registration is the troublesome issue where every asset of your hospital probably is asked for in that filing of form. And probably CA's report is also needed. And in that case, that amount goes too much for the registration. Then about few things, though they are separate from each and every state, like professional tax for doctors as well as the people, those who are appointing for your hospital. About PCPNDT, I think we have just discussed. And about nurses ratio, I'll tell you one important thing which happened in Maharashtra as well as Pune. When they were asking for hospital registration, there was the entity like qualified nurses in your clinic or your hospital or your daycare center or your nursing home. But we went in RTI asking various government hospitals and municipal hospitals, corporation hospitals, what is the nurses ratio in their hospital? After that particular RTI, when it was put, there was no proper ratio in their hospitals also. So government hospitals, corporation hospitals, they are also lacking, and they cannot comply with all those rules and regulations. And when you show them that even your hospitals are not up to the mark, why are you forcing private nursing homes and private hospitals to have all those rules and regulations? I think with these words, it is open for the discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, about the daycare center and states, I will like to say that the health is a state matter. And so rules, regulations, and acts are prepared by the state. Though it should not be derogative from the Delhi central. So whatever is made by the central is not conflicted by the state, but still state has a liberty to form their own things. And accordingly, the Daycare Center Act was formed for the Delhi, and that was also drafted by me and sanctioned, and it is included in Delhi Nursing Home Act at present, and it is working there nicely. So we have drafted the same type of the daycare draft by me and for the MOS and Maharashtra, and that is also submitted. In that state, the thing is that the operation theater can be attached to the daycare center. There is no need, because daycare center is defined as if the patient are residing more than 24 hours, that doesn't become a daycare center. So it can include the daycare center with operation theater or other amenities also, but the more than 24 hours stay of the patient will not be there. And for that purposes, if any emergency comes or in the operation theater some emergency happens, the nurse ICU or NICU or such hospital should be under the MOU that they will accept that patient for the admission for the further treatment. And that was included in the Daycare Act, and it was accepted in Delhi, and probably it will be accepted in Maharashtra in due course, because we have already submitted.
Thank you, sir. Because we have also given the Daycare Act requirement to Tamil Nadu government, because it becomes easier for the small eye centers and hospitals, as well as to increase the licensing longevity. Because for PCB, now we have asked for 5 + 5 years, 10 years. So otherwise, every year getting the license very difficult and very costly. Same way, we are now focusing on extending the fire NOC for 3 years or 5 years, and at least for the daycare centers. So even though we don't have a daycare category in Tamil Nadu, we are pushing for it through IMA as well as to through TNOA. We already given a request to the health minister about this.
Some other states are also following the same thing.
Yeah.
Like the other day, Gujarat requested for a reference, and we gave them the DOS letter. So based on some reference, every the state at state level, you can represent to the state government for a daycare center empanelment, and that can be done. And regarding the fire safety norms, like in our state in Telangana, the fire safety norms are not required for buildings up to 10 meters height.
So
Not the stringent.
these are things we have to keep on
Yes.
doing advocacy work to
Yes.
streamline
Yes.
across the state.
Streamline. Exactly.
Unfortunately, if there is fire somewhere in the country, I think the rules are strict, and they try to make more and more strict rules.
Strict.
So fire somewhere affects a few other places in so many places in the country.
That's
There
more of
are
a
different
reactive.
categories of fire safety also. So according to the hospital beds and the hospital size, they give the certificates, and fire NOC is given for the clinics, and like only the fire is the that is a instrument that is to be kept, and like that there are different categories also they have formed, and accordingly they give NOC. So everything is not applicable for every hospital. So according to the size of the hospital, beds of the hospital, it is differs.
One important thing is almost everywhere in the country, clinic doesn't require any registration. Am I right?
No, fire extinguisher is required in the clinic also.
No, I am
That
saying
you have to fit.
registration.
It is on and off. It is
No,
on.
sir.
Sometimes
Registration is
it-
mandatory. And as part of registration, we need to have fire protection arrangements.
About pure clinic, I am talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Clinics,
But the requirements are very less.
very minimal.
Yeah.
But I don't think, sir, everyone registers for the clinic or a polyclinic.
No,
kind of-
according to me, sir, even in Maharashtra, if it is the pure clinic, no registration is
no
needed.
registration.
And that's
They
the uniform thing
insisted-
what I feel.
Some years back, they insisted and they gave us recognition for 5 years. And after that, when we approached the authorities for renewal, they said not required.
It is included in the Clinical Establishment Act, and they
And-
want to not
Yeah.
only clinics, but even yoga centers and then some spa centers and some paramedical centers. They try to include everything in that. That is
In
their
the-
basic aim, which is there in the original Clinical Establishment Act, if I am not wrong.
Correct. It depends on the state, sir. In Tamil Nadu, every clinic has to be registered, including the consultation room in the residences.
It is not so in Maharashtra.
Okay. So it varies between the states.
States
And
to states.
now IMA
Because you have accepted Clinical Establishment Act, maybe your Tamil Nadu version.
Yeah. Now we have asked for exemption for hospitals under 50 beds.
That's good.
The Clinical Establishment Act registration, citing Maharashtra and Telangana, at least for the clinics and daycare centers.
Yes.
That's exactly what was the contention in the Supreme Court recently with our case. The judge observed that Clinical Establishment Act is a very well drafted act by the central government, and when they can enact an act, what is the problem in there setting a range of tariff for the act? So that was the contention from the government.
They don't understand the ground reality.
Yeah. So
The ground reality is that the central cannot compel all the states to because it is not a subject.
Health, as Dr. Deshpande said, is a state subject, and the
state subject, so they cannot compel it.
Yes.
But I know two examples. When the Clinical Establishment Act was accepted by the center, two states, basically Bengal started it, and it was the worst formation of Clinical Establishment Act in their state. It was the IMA which intervened, and the same way, few years ago, maybe 5-7 years ago, it was in Karnataka. There was huge problem in Karnataka. The whole IMA was behind Karnataka, and that time it was taken back. Otherwise, rules were so stringent. Even the super specialist had to keep his fees as ₹100 only. And everything was trying to be regulated by that particular act in Karnataka, which was very different. Again, one more thing came in Rajasthan, that is right to health. When suppose it would have been passed in Rajasthan, probably all other states were trying to pass it. So these are worst scenario. Sometimes in one or the other state it starts, and then if it is not stopped at that particular stage, probably other states will follow that. So these are 3-4 examples like Bengal, Karnataka, and Rajasthan. What I remember, because IMA intervened that time, and even Rajasthan, if you remember, maybe through 2-3 years ago, it was the worst scenario, right to health. Basically, they wanted that right to health for each and every private practitioner. But basically, that law was, I think, modified in a way that right to health will be only related to government hospitals and not for private. And that way it was escaped.
And one more complication that we are likely to encounter in future is because the possible being elected government in a manifesto has proposed Ayushman Bharat for everybody over 70 years. That may have an impact on private practitioners because, an offshoot of this is like recently AIOS president is being invited to attend the PMJY meetings. So it is a trap, basically, I feel personally, like CGHS number and Ayushman Bharat number are being linked now. So now presently Ayushman Bharat is 7.5 something and CGHS rates are around 17. So they may strike a via media, say even if it is 15, they will ask us to do CGHS for 15, Ayushman Bharat for 15. And our medium range IOL cases, like they would prefer to get it totally free than pay you 30-40. So it can go anyway, but we have to be mentally prepared.
Dr. Mathur, sir,
all the small eye centers and all. So it is important that we do a proper costing and present the real facts to the government when the president is invited, so that a reasonable amount is fixed for a basic cataract surgery that needs to be looked into and presented to the government.
Dr. Mathur, sir, I think recently I had heard that AIOS has gone into the court of law for one important issue. And everyone is saying that AIOS has done good thing. What is that?
This is the challenging the Clinical Establishment Act, Rule 9.
The Rule 9
empowers the government to fix a range of rates for 70 procedures, surgical procedures. And because in that veterans case that is already there, they have filed a writ saying that we want the central government to enforce
regulate the rates.
Rule number 9. So the court ordered the center to fix a range in consultation with the states, because it's a state subject, within a month's time. And if you can't do it, we'll impose Supreme Court rates. And for that, they cited the example of cataract surgery rates ranging from 10,000 rupees to 1,20,000 rupees. So what we at headquarters felt was, since they have specifically given an example of cataract surgery rates, it is the bounden duty of AIOS to at least implead in that case and convince the court, because the judges will not be in the know of why there's such a vast range. So it is our duty to explain to them why we can do cataract surgery for as low as 10,000 and as high as 1,20,000, depending on the equipment, the length of cost lens, inputs, capex expenditure, everything. So with that intention, we had a legal opinion from 3 AIOS lawyers. So 2 of them suggested an independent writ along with impleadment. 1 lawyer suggested just impleadment, because if you just implead in a case, the Supreme Court, while hearing the veterans case, may allot 5 to 10 minutes to the AIOS lawyer to present their case. And because we are just impleading in the case. But if you file a writ, they have to listen to us totally. So that is the reason why we filed a writ, as well as we impleaded in the veterans case. So what happened is, during the first hearing, they gave a notice to the Attorney General. And in the second hearing, the Attorney General told the Supreme Court that there is a similar case pending in on another bench, the veterans case. So they are asking for enforcement of Rule 9, and this petition challenges Rule 9. So let both the petition be heard in the same bench. So our bench transferred this case to the veterans bench. So we have achieved both impleadment and writ along that bench. Now IMA and HCP, there's a hospital association together, they have also filed a writ. Probably that case will be also transferred to the Supreme Court bench, and it will be a long drawn hearing, and let us hope for the best. That is the status.
At IMA platform, I heard, and everybody was congratulating AIOS. I must congratulate AIOS for this particular move. I think this is the step which is expected from our members, what our apex body should do. Simple version was that I think court ordered that you should frame the rates of various procedures. Otherwise, this otherwise was very important. Otherwise, CGHS rates should be applicable.
Yes.
See, this much range was given, and this option was not good. You cannot fix the charges, because you cannot fix the charges of architect, engineer, or lawyer. So why you want to fix the charges of doctors and various procedures? As
That's
you said,
why
even I will.
section
Yeah.
That
itself
date
is
was ending on April 9th. That's why we hurried. During the Kolkata conference only, we took a decision. We formed a committee urgently, and then we filed the case before April 9. But that case is now coming up. A veterans case is coming up again on April 26th. So hopefully, let us see how it goes about.
Good.
And now
Why
probably
there should be capping for the
Dipanshu
ophthalmic
and,
surgeries?
yeah.
Why there should be capping for ophthalmic surgeries? Why not to all the surgeries then? If the other surgeries are not being capped, why only ophthalmic?
Sir, they are asking for all procedures, not only ophthalmic.
They are asking for 70
Basically,
procedures.
it is against the right, constitutional right given to the profession.
Correct.
So in government hospitals, you can cap. In corporate hospitals, where you are giving free services, or half free services, or percentage wise free services, there you can cap. But for a totally private person, you cannot cap, because it is against constitutional law of 21. It goes against 21.
We are saying
right,
that the Article 19
right.
and Article 21.
So it cannot be done.
Yes.
We have to fight for that only. That's all.
We have cited Article 19, fundamental right, and Article
9 and 21.
19
because
and
both
20.
are you are giving the free hand for the professional to charge according to their will.
So then that way, though, there should be a capping on medical education cost also.
Yeah, medical for government, if supplying the services, it is okay. They can cap it.
There is a lot of variation.
That was exactly the observation of the Supreme Court. They said that you take land on a concessional rate, you don't earmark free beds for the poor. I can challenge you on that. That was the aggression from the bench, actually, when we presented our case. And we said it's not through all, it's not for everybody. Probably a few hospitals must have got subsidized land, but we don't get subsidized electricity. In fact, we pay commercial charges for electricity. We pay commercial charges for water. For everything, we pay commercial rate. And then how do we expect a subsidy for the charges? So that was the presentation. And
Only for those who have taken the land from the government or some facilities from the government, or they are working under some scheme, they can cap. But for others, they cannot cap. We have to fight for that. That's only.
So Kaushik, do we have any other things? Do you have anything to ask?
No, I think we don't have other questions. I think we had a lively discussion and we are happy to have AIOS treasurer with us, and definitely AIOS has been more proactive for the members recently, and we are seeing many legal like things which we have always wanted as a member that AIOS leadership should do and should fight for them. And this is, I think, in a good direction which AIOS is going. And also we have received recently that AIOS is also providing indemnity insurance for members, which is a very excellent step which was required for a long time.
We are working on that aspect. There are some fine prints that need to be ironed out. So probably we may have a webinar with the people soon, and then probably we may have another physical meeting with them in the headquarters. We'll sort out all the creases and then it should be implemented. The next thing on our mind is the health insurance for everyone. The iOS members. Let's hope for the best. That may take time, but let's hope for the best. And one good news I want to share.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to say the same thing.
Dipanshu and Kaushik must have received emails.
Yes, sir. Today only morning.
Got the emails, yeah. So we are involving Kaushik and Dipanshu in the medical legal subcommittee of AIOS with Dr. Deshpande, Dr. Marathe, Dr. Deshpande, and Dr. Vashni from Delhi. Yes. Now we are in, so very soon we should see Dipanshu and Kaushik as panelists in some webinars.
Dr. Manoj Mathur, I must I am thankful to you for involving this young generation. When I saw that list, I think A. Deshpande as the senior most person as chairman, I saw that name, and you are the convener. And when I saw these two names, I thought Dipanshu and Kaushik, what they have been doing last couple of years.
From the medical legal team of YOSI.
Otherwise, you pick up so many people, those are not working. With due respect to Dr. Nirmal, who was there in the past and is working for the cause. But there are so many people who are not working, but still they are in the committee. But these are the two youngsters.
So many sessions for medical legal sessions.
These are the two youngsters. I think you have picked them up. You have picked them up and identified them, recognized their work. And YOSI platform is being identified at AIOS apex level and top level. This is just because of you. Definitely,
I won't take the individual credit. We just felt like we should involve the youngsters as well as women in all.
Good. That is good, sir. Because the activity should start and we should fight. So many problems are there with AIOS, but only we have to allocate those problems to us. That is the thing. Your president, secretary should allocate the problems to us, our committee, so that we will go on start solving the problems. Because now young people are with me.
So I feel all of us are equally surprised to see our names.
Yeah, and the issue which is now with Suraksha policy,
grooming youngsters for the
also future. We can tackle with Suraksha policy with AIOS, because Maharashtra, that is a big discussion going in Maharashtra also. Why not to join the indemnity insurance which was given by the Lombard, ICICI Lombard, and become a part of the Suraksha. So that is a good idea. Only the differences are that.
CoverU is ready to do that. I had a meeting with them today, telephonic meeting, and they are going to contact your leadership now. And they will sort out something, and most probably, if everything goes on well, your 400 members will directly join the AIOS.
Only the thing is that, sir,
know that AIOS Suraksha is not a group insurance. It is a direct individual insurance between a member
I'm going to tell you, sir, that it should be a direct individual.
Yes, it is
not
a
group.
Direct individual contract between the individual and CoverU. under the umbrella of AIOS Suraksha, you will
Yeah,
get
under the
additional
umbrella,
benefit.
as
And
it was
additional
under the
benefit.
Maharashtra.
Yes.
Yeah,
Additional
MOS.
benefit. That's it.
Yeah.
That has to be very clear. It is not an AIOS group indemnity insurance.
Yeah,
It is individual.
Because when started we in Maharashtra, the premium was 30,000 for 1 crore. And we negotiated, and we brought it to 8,600. So that much reduction of the premium we could do for an individual. Now, any individual ophthalmologist can straight away have this indemnity insurance with the NOBAR. So that facility is given to all the ophthalmologists. And fortunately, I discussed with them and forced them to give that facility to other faculties also. And the other faculties are also enjoying that reduction of the premium. So we can join under the umbrella of the AIOS for the same thing, but with individual entity remaining the basic. Because in court, many times, when there is a group insurance, court doesn't take the cognizance. But when it is an individual insurance, court has to issue the notice to the insurance company. So that is a little difference. And another thing is that some exhausted the premium, the remaining remains the same afterwards if the case happens to them. So that is also a drawback of that. So we will discuss with your permission and with your guidance and everything, and we will join the AIOS and this insurance, and we'll make a very good product out of that, which will benefit all the ophthalmologists of the India. Under your guidance, definitely we can do it if we allocate this to us.
They are ready. In principle, they are ready.
Yeah.
So actually, Parikshit approached me.
Yeah,
so
we should have a meeting.
We have put them across to your president secretary.
Yeah, we can have a meeting on with them and authorities of the AIOS.
And then sort out the issues.
Yeah.
And if it is possible, they will certainly port it.
Yeah. You arrange the meeting so that we can finalize this subject and we'll make it a very good product to the India ophthalmologists.
So it will be a big boost.
Yeah.
Sports
Yeah.
straight away joining here, Suraksha in one go.
Yeah, that would be better, sir, because we also had a discussion with ICICI Lombard a few months back, but there were a lot of restrictions. And so we have a successful scheme already running. We didn't want, some of the members were not, would not be able to use that because this is already doing well, PPLS scheme in Tamil Nadu. So if AIOS brings all the benefits together, I think across the country, it will be useful for everyone.
Yeah, it will across the country.
Criminal negligence. This group, they are okay with criminal negligence. They are okay for refractive surgeries. So they are giving a good gamut of.
I think out of court settlement also.
Maharashtra has included the refractive surgery with a little increased premium.
Even criminal negligence, they are ready to cover.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So if we
so a lot of good work being done. Nice to hear so many things coming out of the present leadership.
The basic aim last year was we introduced Guru Sangam for teachers. We introduced OCAT and Prayogshala extensions. You will be hearing soon about for students. This year we want to do something substantial to practitioners.
Okay. That's a good thought, sir.
And we have Nirmal on board. In what capacity, you will all know a little later.
So I'll thank Nirmal sir for sharing the excellent and detailed presentation on how to approach or how to get the requisite permissions for starting a new setup. And we have been always lucky to have guidance of Anand sir, Prakash sir, and Manoj sir in this venture. We have already finished more than 19 sessions on medical legal aspects, and all of them are available on YouTube, and they are being watched by people who could not join live. So I'll thank our mentors and Nirmal sir, and with the permission of Anand sir, Nirmal sir, Prakash sir, Manoj sir, we'll like to conclude the session.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It
Thank
was a
you.
wonderful experience
Thank you. Thank you.
and very fruitful discussion on the topic.
Looking to see you
Yeah.
also in the next
Yeah.
session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Meeting is over.
Yes, sir.
Recording is over.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mathur sir.
गेले.
अरे
ते पर्सनल तुम्हाला फोन करायला लागेल आता या
नाही
प्लॅटफॉर्म
केलं